furniture manufacturing, fiber processing, feed production, and fertilizer production. In terms of the, how we structure it, we say that we ask that the minimum investment be R1 million, but that we actually come in at a cost sharing on a partnership, and that we do it between 20 and 30%. So as an example, if you're a new entity and you're trying to venture into this program, qualified investment minimum would be R1 million up to 10 million rands, but will only subsidize 30% of the investments, which means that the maximum kept on this grant as a new entity, as an example, will only be 3 million rands. Sorry. And then support measures, obviously, new machinery and equipment, new commercial vehicles, and we've got guidelines there that is limited at 2 million rands. Buildings must not exceed the investment in machinery, equipment, and tools up to 2 million rands, which in essence means that you can't exceed 2 million rands. Competitiveness cost up to 10% of the qualified investment in machinery and equipment, and limited only up to 2 million rands per investment. Eligibility criteria, obviously, with any other government funded initiative, we must have a business plan that informs us about where you're coming from and where you're going. And with that, we'll have like detailed agro-processing value addition activities that you obviously outline, your budget plans, projected financial income statement, and balance sheet for at least 3 years. That will give us a sense of whether, how far we are going with your investment. Existing entities must submit the latest financial statements, not older than 18 months, just to have a sense of how the business has been performing. And that every application must first be approved before the enterprise goes and commits financially. If there's been already a commitment, then we are able to subsidize the project, but that we'll only be able to subsidize that for which we have approved ahead of the actual implementation of the program. Along with that, we request that there must be no reduction of employment. It would not make sense if the application says we'll increase employment, but along the line, then there is a reduction of employment from the base year for the at least 12-month period from the date of submission. The minimum qualifying investment, I think I mentioned earlier, is 1 million rands, but it goes up to 10 million rands, depending on whether it's an existing or just a starting up venture. There will be an addition of 10% that would be considered, provided the entity is able to demonstrate one of these 4 benefit criteria, being the issue of employment. If you can demonstrate that you're able to increase the base year employment by at least 25%, transformation, if you can demonstrate that you've been able to reach B level 1 from the goods according to the codes of good practice, and projects located in state-owned industrial parks, areas with unemployment higher than 25%, or either or. That would be one of the qualifying criteria for economic benefits that may help you reach the 10% consideration increase. Local procurement, we want at least 70% of all procurement to be locally manufactured. It's a very straightforward program, colleagues. And if there's any questions, as Mangidi said, they can be channeled through Proudly SA, and we'll gladly take those. But I think from my side, that's it on the agro processing. My colleague Vuyo is on standby and will talk to us about SPY.
Thank you so much for that insightful presentation. We are now on standby for Vuyo. Thank you. While we're waiting for Vuyo to connect, can I just remind our delegates to please send us your questions or comments on the chat box with the greatest of pleasure. Thanks a lot.
Good morning, colleagues. My name is Vuyo, and then I'm happy today to be invited again to this session of Proud South Africa. And then I also say thank you to all protocols that need to be observed. Also to Uma Khumalo, since our last engagement in Kimberley. So thank you guys for inviting us. Today I'm going to share some information on the support program for industrial innovation, which is a program that on my own, I take it as a program that needs to be shared, especially with the young people, because yes, the country indeed needs that kind of innovation. You know, this internet sometimes giving me issues. These are the contents of the program. We'll talk about the background, the qualifying criteria, and how is the application process. And then this is the background. We support a new innovation that will be taken to commercially, and ultimately we take it out of the country internationally through other measures of the DTI. And then we are saying we need to focus specifically on the development phase. Once that research has been done, and then it's when the guy or the lady or the young people will come and say, this is the prototype that we need to produce. And then we link them with other stakeholders, such as universities, such as other private companies that they can assist them to develop that. And then in that, we have what you call an agreement with them that once you achieve this milestone, and then the department will give you so much as per the agreement that we will enter together with that specific young person. And then we are saying also this program, yes, we all know that we did ask our partner IDC to run with it, and then we said no, that it comes back home, and then the DTI will take it over from there. Now it is at the DTI. And then we are saying that we do not support the pre-feasibility and also the post-prototype, meaning that when you are taking this prototype of yours to manufacturing, marketing, and roll out on this program is only supported by other measures of the department, as I've mentioned, such as your export marketing and investment assistance, where we have also your individual participation, where you'll go over to attend those exhibitions to market your product. And then we are saying that we do support your proof of concept, your blueprint for development. And then, as I've mentioned that, yes, after you have done your research, and yes, indeed, we do not support your basic research. and your commercialization and marketing on this program. And then the criteria, we are looking at your economic merit of that product of yours, your managerial capabilities, and also the financial ability of this thing that you want to do, and your own contribution is very little anyway, because we know that, yes, our people don't have money. And then we say this innovation, we talk of a unique product that you're coming in with, and then that is going to interrupt or disrupt or be radical in the economy, and then here to be functional, unique, and advanced, and low cost. If process driven, it should be a substantial improvement of the original process, not be adding on something that is already in the market, and then the results of technical development as opposed to research or studies should be emphasized on technical innovation. And then there are so many innovations that we have supported under this program. And then I've mentioned the requirement that it should be represent a significant a new technology that is well advanced, and then it has to be production should take place within the South African borders, and then the IP which we also support on this program has to reside in South Africa and be a South African registered company. It is available to all registered enterprises of the country, and then government funded institutions do not directly qualify for support but can act as subcontractors on this program, because we avoid the issue of double dipping. We avoid that you cannot be supported and also at the same time you get money again. And then we talk of you can submit your application simultaneously from the same company that is assisting this small enterprise. The scheme is divided in two parts. That is your product process development scheme and the matching scheme. I will mention them. Under the product process development scheme, we are saying that we support, we give a grant of non-repayable. A grant is a grant, you can't pay it back. We said no, a grant of 50 to 85% on qualifying costs incurred during the development stage. And then we also go further. We say if it's a black ownership, we give 50% grant, and then 25 to 50% of black ownership, 75%. The more black ownership, the more we give. And then the maximum will be up to 85%. And then monetary, it's up to 2 million per project. This is one for product process development. As I've said, there are two. And then let us go to a matching scheme. Under that one, we also give, is still the same thing. And then also you can look there on bullet point number 3, where we say that if it's 65% of qualifying, it's owned by ownership by women or people with disability, and then that one maximum is up to 5 million. Categories supported on the matching scheme is direct labor, direct material, direct subcontracting, specially approved items, capital equipment, patent lodgement fees. short program, but what we did now, we said this program since we have been, the country has been on this pandemic of COVID. Now we've taken this one as a flag program of the DTI. We're aggressively marketing this one. We've gone through the length of the country as the Western Cape office and the DTI head office. We've reached people far-flung from the cities. We have gone to way, and then we've received so many applications, and then our people that are processing application are flooded with the young innovations that have been put forward for consideration by the management in the application side of the scheme. And then we are busy having all these kind of workshop with the young people, with the chambers and so on. So with that, I will say for any inquiries, you can go to the website it is there, the SPY inquiries at the DTIC. For application, it is the SPY application, but it is advisable that before you submit that application, if you are not sure, and then you are not far from the DTI office, and then you can fire them, and then they can look at that application and assist you here and there before you submit for consideration in the adjudication committee meeting. With that, I will say, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for the opportunity. That's all from me.
Thank you so much, Mr. Zita and Mr. Rafapa. We greatly appreciate your inputs, and thank you for showing up every time Proudly South African reaches out to you. And Mr. Zita, you mentioned that trip in Bloemfontein. Hopefully, now that our lives are back to normal a bit, hopefully we'll start doing the road shows again and see you there live. Thank you so much. I do see that on the chat box, there's been questions, and Mr. Rafapa, you've been busy responding to some of those, which is great. I was warned that both you and Mr. Zita would have to jump off the call immediately after your presentation. But before we let you go, just one question that I think was not responded to. Just quickly, is this a reimbursive scheme? Do you need to acquire equipment prior to receiving a grant? And this, I think, came in during your presentation, Mr. Rafapa. Do you want to take that?
Yes, thank you. I think I responded on the chat
Okay.
that, yes, that in essence, one would have to get an approval from the department. And only after the approval has been granted, then can you go and invest. After you've invested, then you can come back and claim.
Okay, thank you so much for having responded on the chat box, but also just sharing this for those people who may not have seen the response. It is greatly appreciated. We look good for now, but should there be any other questions and comments that come after you've left the platform, I think it's safe to say to the audience, we know where you live. We'll find you. We'll reach out to you via email to ask you to please help us accordingly. But thank you so much. Let me thank you at this point, because you're not going to be on the line. Your time is much appreciated. We don't take it for granted. Thank you, Mr. Rafapa and Mr. Zita. They were both from the Department of Trade, Industry and Competitions, which is the DTIC, and they took us through some of the programs they have as a department. And should you have more questions that you would like to, or comments rather, that you would like, sorted and you would like us, like clarity on from the colleagues, you're most welcome to do that. Before I invite Mr. Matiela from the IDC to take us through his presentation, okay, oh, all right, I see he's on the screen. That's fine. You can go ahead, Mr. Matsiela. He is regional manager from Limpopo, and he is representing the IDC. The IDC was also an entity that participated at the Business Solutions Hub during our Summit and Expo in March. And like I said earlier on, when I opened, this is a spin-off from that session. So you can go ahead, Mr. Matsiela, and then after your presentation, I will then just share 2 slides with the audience, just to highlight some of the stuff that we do at Proudly South African, which will hopefully, make a lot of sense and give context into why we believe these kind of sessions are absolutely critical for our SMEs and entrepreneurs in South Africa. Thank you so much, sir. Welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Epi. Just as by way of introduction, my name is Masheu Masiera. I'm the regional manager for IDC here in Limpopo, with our one and only office based here in Polokwane at number 73 Bickert Street. And we do operate across the province of Limpopo via our satellite offices in partnership with CEDA in the various districts. Now, mine is really being an agency of the DTIC. The facilities that they were speaking about, the APSS and SPY and them and other products that we are managing on their behalf are really a myriad of arsenal that we use to make a difference in the economy. So there is no them and us. We work together. We just in different rooms. Yeah, I'm here representing the Industrial Development Corporation, the IDC. How we play a role in the economy. Ours is to make sure that we fund in the economy. We create jobs. We bring about transformation in terms of bringing women into the mainstream economy, the youth, and the Black industrialists. Yeah. So just a brief background, again, not assuming that we're all familiar with IDC. Just our overview, we've got a depth of experience and expertise, which spans over a number of years, as you can see, being established in 1940. The IDC is a development finance institution, which I'll show you where we fit in the scheme of things in the next slide. The IDC as it is 100% owned by the South African government. So the government is a shareholder in this company, like anybody that goes up and set up a business. So the government is 100% shareholder of IDC. Maybe whilst on that, to say that many people might think that we get an allocation on a yearly basis, like the government departments would get, your SASAs and them, but we are self-sustainable. All that it is that the government owns IDC, and what IDC then does, since it was formed then, it generates its own funds. We borrow locally and offshore, and ours is to remain sustainable, financially sustainable, whilst also balancing the developmental outcomes. As much as we have incentivized funding to try and intervene in bringing the youth, as an example, into the mainstream economy, the women, the Black industrialists, we work together with the DTIC and other entities of government where we, from time to time, manage funds on their behalf, because we've got a channel, with which to go into the market. So look at it that way. That there was not so long ago a program director, the IDC proudly paid a dividend to the government, and by the way, we pay tax like any other company out there. you know, we're proud that in that way, we're really contributing to the government and to this country than taking away from it. And I often hear people say that after a financial year end, they say, no, so you returned all the money instead of spending it in the province or spending it wherever. We don't have any monies to return because we don't get any allocation. What happens is a buffet. We want the potential and existing clients to come forward and take this money and plow it into the economy so that we can have all these developmental impacts of job creation, you know, BIs being set up, and women and youth also coming into the mainstream economy, so that in the end, when the dust settles, we cannot say black and white or whatever pink. We are all South Africans and we're benefiting from the resources of this country equally. Now, the funding, the funding status, fund operations and growth from the investments and borrowing. I've just said that we generate our own monies through the investment that we make, through the loans that we give out. We get interest, so it's very important that you do pay us back so that we can help the next person and the next company, and that we remain sustainable. Main business area, we provide funding for entrepreneurs and project contribution to industrialization in the country. Very, very important, but you'll see that we also go to the rest of Africa, because if you're staying next to a neighbor who's not doing that well, you cannot have peace enjoying your whiskey or juice over the balcony while overlooking people that are hungry. So hence it's important. Actually, there's vast opportunities in Africa, and I think the stage is set really for us to take a rightful place in making a difference in the continent, and we are on to that. Importantly, here we are very flexible. You know, we are not rigid. We fund according to the project needs, according to the needs of the client. You know, if, for example, if you're doing an orchard establishment, planting citrus, it may be maybe 3, 4, 5 years before the orchard come into production. Hence, we're not going to say pay on month 1. So we'll structure it in such a way that it speaks to the cash flows of the project at hand. Now, we fund from 1 million per project and above. We go up to 1 billion per project. I mean, there's a number of big projects that the IDC has participated in across the country. You know, what comes to mind if you go Sasol, for instance, it's one of them, Kumba Resources, the Columbus Stainless Steel, across the sectors. We really participated in I mean, we're almost everywhere in every sector. The big project, you find that IDC has a hand. Of course, we partner with other financial institutions, with our other DFIs, so that we can reach far from time to time. Now, our funding comes in the form of debt, where we give loans, but like in the Sasol example and Columbus Stainless Steel examples, we also invest with the understanding that when this investment matures, we can sell at and realize a profit of sorts. And during the time of the investment, we can also reap some dividends there. And there are years that we really appreciate the dividends that come through, because these are strategic investment to keep us afloat. And we also do give guarantees, or a combination of any of these, debt and equity and or the three, whichever where the needs of your business are. So, and these are the stages of investment. Suffice to say that we do startups, expansions, and acquisitions, where you, like, BE party wants to acquire a stake, in a meaningful stake in an existing business. That's really the overview of IDC, and I'll urge you to go onto our website and just navigate, and you know, like reading a book, take your time, walk through the website, and you'll be amazed of the kind of stuff that we do. We do CSI as well. We have a research and information unit that specifically look at various sectors, and we do research on that. you know, and we work with the likes of the DTIC and our other DFIs in the process. Now, just to position IDC, the one extreme on my right is your commercial banks, which you have security collateral or not, you can jump. This is how we do things. They're very, very commercially focused, and they're using private sector capital, nothing from government except, you know, lately with COVID, we've seen that they've also, the government would use their channels also to push some of the funds into the economy. Financial objectives is what they're focusing on, and so on. Very, very risk averse, I may say, with the bank. You know, they need to know that if you don't pay, they can sell your house, or and the bank must pardon me, or they can sell that piece of equipment and that. But when you go to the left on the extreme here, that's government and then NGOs and equivalent entities which are non-commercial focused. You're talking like your grant, you know, through SASA and just getting life going on, you know, for the disadvantaged and the marginalized and everybody else, including myself, you know, it's those things that really are needed to get all of us, that are common to all of us, you know, the roads and you name it. And we have that developmental objective from this extreme, from government and the NGOs, very, very important role that the two extremes play. But the IDC then is pitched somewhere here in the middle, where we are a bit of both. You know, as much we have to balance the financial objectives with the non-commercial objectives, you know, to make sure that we bring women and youth into the economy, the BIs, and that might take some level of intervention where we must come up with the funds that speak to that. So it's really a thin balance that we navigate in. Remember, we must also remain sustainable. So hence, we're not having the much privilege of grants unless the government or the DTIC from time to time throws something here, which we blend, and then we can be able to then fund these other extreme on the left. Now, we share risk, as I've mentioned, with other funders. Internally generated funds, very, very important. And then we, from time to time, also get some funds through the DTIC and other to, you know, that might be soft, which we blend with our funding. Right. So let me try and see, Program Director, if I can add some speed here on my pedal. That's where IDC sits. Now, in terms of our financial model, this is just explains what I've said already, that maybe if I look at the bottom, we rely on borrowings. We borrow from domestically and internationally. Because of our credit rating, is very, very important that we keep IDC as it is, so that our name can attract cheaper funds. And then we also generate monies internally through the interest rates, the interest repayments, as well as the dividend as they flow in. And it's a very nice feeling when this happens, because then the pot fills up and then we can fund again in the economy. The capital growth is when like, you know, in a Sasol or in Kumba and all these places, from time to time, we can decide to sell off a portion of our stake, which really generate quite some funds, which we then plow back into our funding pot. And exit, sometimes we sell off everything because we are not in the business of owning companies. We invest once they are off on their feet, and over time, we get back our money through selling that stake to a BE party or to whoever, a combination of, you know, a transformed company, let me say, to take over, and then we can invest in other areas and so on and so on. Now, this is just explaining really out of the loans, we give out our funds in the form of loans, as I said earlier, and as well as we can invest in the form of equity to help the business out, especially big projects or strategic projects. We go in there, and then our loans will attract interest repayments, and then the capital repayments all back into the pot, and the dividends, and here we can also sell off, and it all goes into a pot here, and then these funds we then use to fund into the economy. Just how we go about it, once you have applied to us, of course, we need a business plan. And that's the language we speak. You write your own story. We don't fill in forms. You tell us what it is. We have a business plan guideline on our website, which I encourage you to really go and navigate. And you'll see in there, we're saying what kind of things are we looking for in a business plan. We assess management because ultimately that is the people we are funding, the jockey. We are funding the jockey. What is their expertise, their claim to, running this thing. We're looking at the market very deeply. We need a verifiable market. Somebody will tell you people eat every day, so I'll sell my apples, but maybe you are in the wrong place. What makes you think that you'll have that competitive edge, etc.? Just as example, technical, we're looking at the capacities, the technology that is employed, and all that, and the people, the staffing. I heard about the making sure that your wages are market related, that kind of thing. So that's what we look at. So we look at pipeline. So we have a pipeline of applications in our system. Then what we do, whether it's a project or a normal application, let's just look that they follow the same route. They arrive here, and then we screen them. We screen these to check if there's a business case here. And some of them don't make it to the next step, which is the due diligence. Once we have screened them desktop, or based on the information that we've given us, we punch it into our model, work it out, and we see, here there's a business case to grow cannabis, for instance, for medicinal use. Then we take it to the next level, which is verifying things, due diligence. Another due diligence, we really take that one seriously. We allocate 3 to 4 people, experts, one looking at financial, one looking exclusively at marketing, and another at technical. And so they will go there and interrogate the figures, test them, first principle. You said this company will buy so many units. We call that company, we engage them, and we verify, and we get comfort. Then we put it together. We break it down and put it together again. And in the end, once we've looked at all these things, then it can then be approved. We take it to the relevant committee for approval. And once approved, then it's just a normal implementation, which is legal agreements get signed, those two conditions precedents get met, like registering bonds and all of those things. We disperse the money, and thereafter, we are a partner with yourself. We don't walk away. We do ongoing monitoring, not to police you, but as part of, as a partner of sorts, not owning any shares, by the way, but just to make sure that things are going right, because if they are not, we can then put in business support to intervene on, say, maybe this market is not working out. We can see what else can we do to help that. We can also restructure the loan size that maybe you pay later because maybe you are hit by COVID or there's other factors that have cropped up. So we do go with you all along. So that's what we do. And maybe just to say here, the reason why our due diligence is comprehensive, and sometimes people think it takes long, but it's because therein lies our security. I spoke of the bank as relying much on the collateral, but we rely much on the business. What can the business do? Is it sustainable in that it's profitable in the long run? And that's what the due diligence tries to establish as we check and go and back and forth. And the good thing is, once you've gone through these efforts and emotions, at the end when IDC says approved, you will understand your business differently from when you are sitting out of it or when you owned it. Because if it is mine, it's like my wife. Everything about her is perfect because I'm with it. But maybe somebody sitting outside, maybe I must speak about myself. Maybe I'm not that good. But maybe my wife sees me as the best that there is. So we come and give you a different perspective to your business because of taking you through these emotions. And I think it must be appreciated. Now, why is my cursor not moving? Then just now, maybe just to single out what IDC then did, we suffice to say that we fund across the various sectors. Agro-processing, DTIC has been speaking about agriculture and agro-processing. We fund in that space. We blend from time to time with their facility, and we have our own interventions. Remember, 1 million up to 1 billion per project. We do automotive and transport and equipment. We do chemical, medicinal and industrial mineral products, medicinal where you can grow your cannabis for medicinal use. We do energy. Energy is very big these days. That's the way to go. And infrastructure. water and sanitation, telecommunication, logistics. We do machinery and equipment, and media and audio visual. If you sit long in the movies, you'll see that like some of your Leon Schuster's IDC funded, Jerusalem and many others, we participate in that space. Mining and metals, we're big on that. Textiles and wood products, we do for the fashionistas, and tourism and services. We just opened a hotel last Friday. Actually, we were in Venda. That IDC is proud to fund in Venda. Actually, we've got many products there in Toando and in those areas because of the comparative advantages that the area has in terms of tourism. We're putting up a premier hotel there. And that is the stuff that we pride ourselves. So then because IDC is mainly between 1 million and 1 billion, you might unintentionally lose track of the small businesses that might fall through the cracks. So recently we launched the SBF, the Small Business Finance Unit, that then does everything that I've mentioned. Where I'm sitting in the region, we're based in the regional space. Every province, there's IDC there. So then that forms part of the Small Business Finance Unit. What we do, we look at projects from 1 million up to 15 million. That's the difference. And we're looking at anything small. We define it by the amount of the loan. Anything that is up to 15 million, we deem as small. And then we wanting to give it a focus and have it lost in the bigger scheme. So you'll find that Small Business Finance Unit, which we call SBF, looks at everything across the board, whereas the main IDC in Sandton at the head office has got specialist SBU, strategic business units. Mining will have experts in mining, tourism will have experts in tourism, energy, and so on and so on. But us, we are generalists. We take everything, so long as it's 15 and below, be it energy, be it agro-processing related, and you name it, we do that. So that's where you come in, I think. And this is just a story about how we are formed. I think we implemented ourselves in the last financially, our full year was last year of SPF. And we've done wonders today. I mean, we did a lot under PubRef, where we help with the rebuilding the KZN and the parts of Joburg after the unrest. And now we are back at it with the floods, along with the rest of IDC, because we are in the regions. That's the advantage that we have. Come through us, whether you want a bigger amount or lesser amount, we are the same IDC, and then we'll channel it across accordingly. We work together, but it's just this SBF focuses on the 15 million and below. So we do all of this that IDC does: startups, expansions, as I've mentioned, contract funding. We do logistics with trucks in the mines. We funded a few of them. And so on and so on. And we do give working capital. All that IDC does is just that we cut it at 15 million. And we flexible now. With SBF, there's one initiative which is my last slide, I want to bring out, that seeks to partner the SMEs with the big corporates, as I've mentioned, be them mines, be them in agriculture, be them in any sector, so long as they have a supplier development program or an enterprise development program. So this SME Connect initiative, we're saying, it will enable us to deepen our industrial development in the small industrial business segment, and thereby grow SMEs through the following three levers. These initiatives depends on these three levers working in tandem. It brings about access to the market, which is very important and a challenge for especially SMEs. You can do everything, but to get into a market that would, especially when you take off, you need that push, you need that boost. So if you have a contract or some form of letter of intent or something with some company that really has got buying power, you can go far. So we link you with this. We come in with the funding, and then the corporate will provide the market, but as well they have under the enterprise, under the supply development program, there might be some funds there. So we partner and we blend, and we can go far. As in the example I can give you, there's a few that we've done with a few mines and other companies like your PPC, which really gave us some traction. We brought in some youth there, women in particular, and the youth. They're coming into that space, and we are very proud that they will grow to become bigger businesses in the future. Then the other lever is that of access to finance. As already said, that's where we come in. That's where the DTIC and everybody else that export funds, we crowd in so that we stretch the rent. You know, we stress the rent that we have. We can partner with the bank in the process. Like in one, there was an APSA there and ourselves and the contract from the mine, and these guys could then buy the trucks to move the concentrate from one point to another. It's a nice space to be. Then we do business support again. We don't let them go on their own. We bring in business support to make sure that there's compliance, corporate governance, all of those things are in place to make sure that this business is sustainable in the long run. This is just the detailed version of the SME Connect, and it's my last slide that says, this is a strategic collaboration model where we crowding in like-minded people. Like you find that a mine would have a supplier development program. There will be by law or otherwise a list of people that they're bringing into that space. They're giving them contract, but the question is, where do they get funding? Usually the sharks are waiting by the gate to say, I see you have a contract. I give you R1 in every 10 rand that you have. I will come with my equipment and process the equipment. So I process the contract. So that we are losing out on really setting up this hive of activities in this area if we don't close that space. Hence, we really came down to say, let's plug that gap and work with the corporates to make sure that whilst they're doing their game of mining or agro-processing or whatever, we can then help them with the funding to capacitate these suppliers. That is a win-win situation. And we've gained some traction on that. Now, there is your access to the market where the SOEs like your Eskom, Transnet would come in with their supplier development program, and then we'll plug in the funding and along with the business support to make sure there's compliance, there's technical support where these people are lacking in some of these things like, I don't know what, in the chicken production, they're growing for, I don't know, Bush Valley, for instance. If the skills are not there, we know make sure that the business support then will pay for a consultant to handhold them for 6 months or so and then get things going. Remember, ours is sustainability. We want things that are sustainable, not once off. So that we will provide, and as well as the funding. But remember, we partner with both the corporate where they have soft funds, we work together, and then as well as bring in other funders into the space. I thank you so much, and you're welcome to, let me go to my thank you slide for our details. This is our office in Limpopo, but obviously we are one house. We're just the one room across the country. Google regional office. If you want to go to Mpumalanga, you say IDC Mpumalanga, I think you'll see something. Even if you go on your website, our website, you say IDC regional offices, they will pop, and then you can interact with anyone across the country. So this is just for Limpopo, and if you send a business plan, you can say limpopo@idc.co.za or call that number. You will be warmly welcome. And this one at the bottom is just our contact center, our call center, which you can call IDC direct, and then they will direct you accordingly, according to the sector that you're applying to and the amount. If it has to come down to here or go to a particular SBU, you will be assisted. And that's our website, IDC, worldwideweb.idc.co.za. I thank you. Thank you very much, Program Director.
Thank you so much, Mr. Matsiela. Much appreciated. Your presentation, your detailed presentation is truly appreciated. Thank you for highlighting the programs that the IDC has to benefit entrepreneurs. We all know that the corporate world or the private sector is not going to be able to absorb everybody into its ecosystem. There's simply not enough jobs in South Africa. And it is in that spirit that we at Proudly South African believe that entrepreneurship is the future, is the way forward to make it the difference that we would like to see as a country for our economy. I do have on the Q&As as well as Facebook a few questions. In fact, let me start off with Facebook. Mr. Matsiela, for your kind, attention, please. So there is a question from Mohammed Plakis, who wants to know, how can an arts organization get funding and or partnership from the IDC? Would you like to take that?
Thank you, Happy. Mohammed, an arts organization, obviously, unless you go through our audio and visual, depending if the product is appropriate to them, is to that extent, and and I'm not sure, maybe on the CSI side, depending on the magnitude of the project, if you can try that, but it's always advisable to approach us, and then we will then see how we can assist. As you can see, we are more into the value addition side of things. In our funding, the sectors that we fund are more value addition. So the arts organization, as I said, it can approach us from that angle of audio, visual, media and audio visual, as well as CSI, and we do also have a development impact support unit, which look at the social side of things, to the extent that that project it would be sustainable, and it will help a certain cause in the community. So you can come through that angle as well. But suffice to say, Mohammed, if you can just give us a proposal and we'll take it from there. There are exceptions, of course. Maybe yours is such. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And there was another question from from somebody else, but I think during your presentation you did take care of that particular question around a registered company. How can they access funds? I think it was part of the presentation. So Zico, we will be sharing the presentations with you, and you can go through that. And Mr. Maitsela, there is one. Emmanuel wants to know, firstly, he's requesting the slide presentation if possible, so we'll make that available. But then he also wants to know about, sorry, just bear with me 1 second, Emmanuel. Oh, one of the funding criteria, this is from Deboko. He says, Teboko Matibedi says, your online application form registration does not send confirmation to complete the application. Is there a PDF application form available? I apologize for the noise in the background. I'm not sure if you can hear it, but they seem to be doing gardening or something in our office block. Do you hear my question, Mr. Matiela?
Yes, I hear. So it's not from Emmanuel, you say? The slide presentation, I think you've addressed it. It will be sent to them, but it's about the online applications, not confirming if you've from Tebo. So the online application, the issue with it is that it's not confirming if you've successfully submitted. Let's wait for Happy to close the noise there. Yes. Okay. I just wanted clarity on about the online application. Is it because after you've completed it, it does not confirm that you successfully submitted? And then you spoke about the PDF version, if it is there for people to, yeah, all right. I think we will note that, we'll take note of that, because obviously we not the users of that, and the feedback of such Teboho is welcome. And we will also check then for the PDF option to be availed. Yeah, and then you can upload that once you have completed it.
All right, thank you so much. Just one quick one again. One of your funding criteria as IDC is direct contract. In terms of transportation of minerals, we tend to get agreements with buyers and not the mine directly. Is there funding work? Is there funding work around? Do you consider such applications, brother?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, and which I don't think really it should matter if you have a contract with the mine or not. The important thing, because the mine in that space will be taking the position of a market for for your service or products. So if you can get that from elsewhere, then that we should be able to fund. Let's say you are moving cement from PPC to, I don't know, to who, to a particular client, like a Masmat, and then you have a contract for you to do that from time to time. And I think that suffices. What is important is the strength, the financial strength of the person giving the contract. If I'm a Mashweu here and I say, I give you a contract of 1 billion, really, Mashweu doesn't even have 1,000 in the bank. So we will assess that, we'll break it down and look at the substance of it, and that, I think that's the deciding factor, whether to fund or not. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. We seem to be okay for now. Should we spot anything else and you're still on the line, we will engage you accordingly. But we appreciate it for keeping the fires burning out there in Limpopo.
Thank you.
In Polokwane, we appreciate your time this morning. We will move along with our presentation. Okay, just one more. Are there programs or funds allocated for companies owned by persons with disability? Not too sure if this was covered in the presentation. So funds allocated for companies owned by persons with disability. Mr. Masiela?
Yeah, thank you for the question, really, and it's always much appreciated. Look, we spoke transformation, and transformation overarches all the disadvantaged and now and in the past to bring them into the mainstream economy. And maybe to answer the question, we don't have at this particular moment a specific product that speaks to people with these disabilities, except to say that under the youth fund, under the BI funding, everyone is accommodated under there. We have a bias towards people with disabilities in terms of assisting them, which benefits can come through maybe a different look at the contribution that the financial contribution that someone has to put into the project. Like with the youth, you find you don't have to contribute that much if you coming from that background, just to make sure that we make it easy for you to come into the mainstream economy. What decides is mainly the economic merit of the business. Yeah, we really very biased towards the previously disadvantaged people, as I say. Maybe if we can just lump it under there, and do come, and based on your circumstances, we will definitely look at that with a different eye.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, sir. You're greatly appreciated. Thank you for tackling that. We will move on with our presentations now. Two more to go through from the NEF and from the Department of Small Business. But before we do that, we're going to go on what I choose to call a brief commercial, if you like. So may I please request that our technical team plays Game Time for us. Game Time is the cornerstone of the work that we do as Proudly South African by way of a commercial, like I say, starring our very own Wakanda, Dr. John Gani. And it's really, is extremely relevant in the work, given the context of the session today. It's about reigniting our economy as a people, as a collective, as South Africa. It's about reminding South Africans that we can all play some sort of a role, to ensure that we keep creating jobs, we sustain the jobs that we have, and we pay special attention to the localization narrative that the country so desperately needs to pay attention to. And Game Time says it is halftime, South Africa, for us to pause and do the right thing. We conceptualized this advert during a hard lockdown in 2020, and it was to say that when life gets back to normal after the pandemic is gone, that as a collective and as a people, we must really do the right thing, hold hands and walk the localization journey together, because we owe it to ourselves, we owe it to our economy, we owe it to the future of our children. We owe it to our economy. So here it is, Game Time, and I've just given you context in what informed us as Proudly South African putting this together. You may have seen it on television already. It's Game Time, South Africa. There is no sound. May I just request that you check the sound quickly? We cannot hear, we can see.
The second half is about to begin. We need to change the scoreboard. It's time for all of us to pause and rethink the game plan in order to save the future. I call on all of us to be game changers, because greatness isn't reserved only for some people. By buying local, we're choosing to create jobs and sustain the ones we have. Time and time again, South Africans have taken destiny into their own hands, creating products that the rest of the world wanted to buy. See, the world remembers about us, where we sometimes forget. But it's time for change. Let's all buy local. It's Game Time, Zanzi.
Local is lekker.
Everyday decisions shape our future.
There you have it. Our everyday decisions shape our future. That was Dr. John Gani, who was playing the role of the South African president and saying that it's time for all of us to pause and rethink our game plan as South Africans. How are we going to get this economy back on its feet? It ceases to be just the responsibility of the government. Yes, we have got to hold them accountable, because they have a responsibility to create an enabling environment to ensure that we have enough jobs. They don't create jobs, but they have a responsibility to create an enabling environment. And so we are, through this advert, we are asking South Africans to pause and for us to rethink our collective game plan and our respective individual game plan about how we're going to move forward in the best interest of our economy to ensure that the future is a good place to be for the next generation and for our children. Like I said, thank you so much. I'm hoping you enjoyed that commercial. And now we will hear from Mr. Sizwe Dludla, who is Acting Investment Principal Imbewu Fund, for the Imbewu Fund at the NEF, and he kicks off with a video before he addresses us quickly. Thank you so much.
nalo silubonile nosizo lwabezizwe sithi enkosi enkosi siyabonga siyabonga nalebuha yenkosi bantabo mntanami ibonakele imisebenzi yethu sibabonile June 16, 1976. I'm sad for you, never said in the car. Was a one night to tell home when you go. Inagumele ngakiwe nguwe, wena wakiwe China sonke masaka, yebo masaka, China sonke masaka. Yeso siba mama bomthandazo, izongeni imithandazo yenu, ngoba thina sinjenjenje, sinjenjenje, lemithandazo. Tina sinjenjenje, sinjenjenje, lemithandazo. Sizimpophe, enkosi, bafundisi bethu, sithi ngoba busisulu enkosi, babuthambo enkosi, enkosi madinga. Oh, siyabonga John Dube, siyabonga babuthuli, siyabonga buthelezi yethu. Mina kumele ngakiwe nguwe, wena wakiwe. Thina sonke masaka, yebo masaka, thina sonke masaka.
Thank you so much for that intro, Mr. Dludla. We look forward to hearing from you. Thanks.
Thank you very much, and thank you to Proudly SA for having us. That actually does look like a commercial for the NEF as well. Just maybe to cover other points as well. I've got a short presentation here that I think maybe will highlight some of the differences that we possibly also have with the IDC, because there's a lot of similarities, and we also are basically working off the same concept of job creation, increasing economic activity within the country. Perhaps the differences are that the NEF is relatively younger, formed in 1998 with the first deal done in 2004. So that is not a long history like that of the NEF, of the IDC, as well as to point out that in addition to financial support in terms of funding businesses, we also provide what you call investment and savings promotion within the country. This is now on personal individuals. So we're looking at economic growth holistically for Black people. And maybe this is another difference, that the NEF's primary interest is Black entrepreneurs and Black business. And then I'll just go through our offering again. It's funding for business. And the only difference being that of Black business, startup businesses, expansions, procurement, and equity acquisition. So still very similar to IDC. The only thing I want to point out here, ours is a maximum of 75 million rand. So 250,000, starting at a lower amount than that of the IDC of 1 million, and a maximum of 75 million rands. And this is the slide I want to speak mostly of, because this is the investment process of the NEF. And indeed, again, it's similar to that of the IDC, and it's deal origination, meaning applications that we receive through our own sources. Yes, indeed, sometimes applications referred by our partners, the IDC, and other organizations we work with. We've got partnerships with oil majors for service stations, so transactions will come from all over. One of the questions we often get asked is, what do I need to make an application at the NEF? We have an application form that contains basic documents, meaning documents that are at the list you need to have an application. And then obviously what follows from there is acceptance of the application, due diligence, and our approval. Our approval being through a committee system, one committee approving up to 5 million rands, and then an amount above 5 million rands requiring 2 committees, and above 15 million rands requiring a 3rd committee, which is board approval. And thereafter is just a legal stage, signing of loan agreements, and obviously collection and post investment. This is what the NEF really does. And this is the process that is followed, and it's done through our various funds. There is the Imbeu Fund. This is the fund that I represent. It's an SME fund. So we also look at franchising there as well, startups and acquisitions of a smaller size. That is what the fund is for. And then we have a Women Empowerment Fund. Here, the difference will be with the Women Empowerment Fund, we're looking at concessionary rates. We're looking at a fixed rate of 1.5%. So that's very, very low. And this is not prime plus, this is not prime less 1.5. It is actually a fixed rate of 1.5%. And this is specifically for transactions that are majority owned by women, and those that will be located in rural and township areas. We also have a Rural and Community Development Fund. Again, this is looking at broader empowerment where there's community involvement, cooperatives, and organizations where they benefit a larger group rather than a single entrepreneur. So this is greater, much more broad-based ownership. We have our Umnoto Fund. This is what we refer to as a corporate fund. They look at new ventures, project finance. They also look at capital markets, liquidity, and warehousing. So basically, where there is equity opportunity, this is the fund that will look at that. And then we have our strategic projects fund. Sometimes also we refer to as special projects fund. These are unique businesses, possibly that have not even reached financial close, meaning they are not even ready for financial markets, but they are still at concept stage. We will fund that process and we'll look at the ongoing development of those projects until they reach financial close. So this is someone who's got an idea, possibly still at concept stage. And these are the funds that NEF works through. Our offering is really centered around these funds and the different products that we offer. The most suited fund is the one where the transaction will go to. I'm just going to quickly run through other slides because I think it's been covered in the video. And some are also just on the, on the further slides. This is the criteria. Again, similar to the DTIC and what has been presented earlier from the ITC in terms of what we look for. Really, this is it. It's about economic empowerment for us, job creation, growth, and also developing areas that are rural or that are what we call economically depressed locations, rural areas and townships. Okay, and basically this is what we've done again, and this was mentioned earlier in our slides in the video in terms of what we've achieved, the different sectors that we fund, just as also covered on the video. That's what the video is intended for, so that we don't over elaborate on some of the aspects that we already have done. We've also covered this in terms of our jobs, in terms of, okay, I'll just continue here. And then we do also, similar to the ITC, we have a national presence, and these are the contact details. I just want to also maybe touch on questions that we often face as the NEF in terms of someone approaching us for funding. So one of the questions we always face is, how long will it take for my application to be approved? And Yes, in our website, we have a general period, an average period of 3 months. But I think the most important period is when you are allocated an investment professional who will look into your application. And that period is 2 weeks from when you apply. So from there, depending on the complexity of your own transaction, that will determine the period it takes to conclude. Also, your participation in terms of providing information in the business. As I mentioned earlier, we have basic documents that you need to apply. This is, we don't want to overwhelm you with 2 pages of documents that are required, but to give you just, if you have these 7 or 8 documents, you can have an application, and that will initiate a process where we can get someone allocated to you to look through your application. So basically how long it takes, we have an average of 3 months. This is from application to disbursement. Yes, if your funding exceeds 50 million rands, because we need board of trustees, it can take a little bit longer, but we're talking about the average turnaround time there. Another question we often face is interest rates from the NEF. Our interest rates are linked to prime. So we have a prime, a range of, say, of prime -5, depending on the relationships whether we have, up to prime plus 3%. I want to mention here that we have partnerships with the DTIC, where they have allocated certain funds to us, and those funds come with concessionary rates. And we also have partnerships with the likes of Transnet, where they have put funds for the purpose of enterprise development. This is specifically for enterprises within their supply chain. So obviously there, the pricing will be different. It will be a blended rate. We also have funds that come with grant portion from different organizations. But if the pool of funds come from the NEF, this is now from our own treasury, then those funds do come at a prime plus rate, because we have to sustain the fund. We are self-sustaining. We are recapitalized. We're capitalized in 2004, and we haven't had any other capitalization, and we've been self-sustaining. So the interest rate is charged specifically for that, to make sure the fund is sustainable. But when we have partners that are looking for specific aspects in terms of developmental impact that they want to have, they will then dictate what is the rate that we charge on the funds they provide to us. And then the other question we have is grants. Someone will ask, does the NEF provide grants? Again, similar to what I've just mentioned earlier in terms of rates, the NEF from their own pot of funds, they don't provide grants. But there are instances, for example, a partnership we have with the Solidarity Fund, where their funding was a grant portion. So it's blended with NEF funds. In that scenario, then you'll have a portion of the funding being a grant portion. Other questions are related to what happens if I have a white partner. I've got business, but I'm in partnership with with a white entrepreneur. So I own 60%, the white entrepreneur owns 40%. Is NEF going to fund something like that? Yes, definitely, we will fund something like that. But again, I want to mention here, our emphasis is, our interest is Black entrepreneurs, Black ownership, and transformation. So in that instance, we want the Black partner to be the one driving the vision of the business, the one who's truly in charge of the operations of the business. So if that can be fully demonstrated, yes, that qualifies for funding within NEF, and bearing in mind that indeed it must be majority Black owned. So as long as it's 51% owned by Black, then it qualifies for our funding. And then the other additional aspects, that it must be in Black owned in truth and in reality. And then one of the questions also, I'm just doing it by questions that are asked, because there's quite a lot to cover when you're doing business funding. And I think I covered almost, what is it that you'll need when you're applying for funding. I'm just covering some of the aspects that we get as the NEF, just to build on to what the ITC had done earlier. One of the questions is, what are the key aspects in the business plan? What is it that you look for in the business plan? What will make my business get the funding? Here we have a guide also in terms of what the business must cover, in terms of the level of information that you submit. in terms of what is it that you must cover in terms of the market, in terms of the skills, in terms of the industry. We have a guide on that. And if you follow that, you'll know exactly what we're looking for when we assess your application. Another question is moratorium on my application and duration of the loan. That will be driven by the cash flows as submitted in the business plan and cash flow projections as submitted. The other question we have is okay, I've covered this one, documents required. Is credit record. If I've got credit listings, judgments, or a negative listing on ITC, will the NEF still consider me? This is not a basis of disqualifying you for funding. And yes, indeed, it is a factor that we consider because this speaks to credit worthiness, ability to own debts. And if indeed you've got a listing, say, from a doctor's office of 230,000 and possibly you were not aware of that, yes, that is something we will not disqualify you for. But if you perhaps have other business debts that were not repaid, possibly for the same business and possibly on your own personal account, possibly 6 judgments or things like that. So it will depend on the circumstances that led to those judgments and whether you have payment arrangements in place with those people, and indeed whether those will not impact the investment, because remember, creditors can have a claim against the business. So it's a variety of factors that we consider, and indeed that will determine then whether we proceed or not. The other question I have often asked is, now my application is declined, is this the end of the road? Can I not approach NEF again? If you can address the issues that led to your application being declined, perhaps you couldn't sufficiently prove market, then yes, if you can then come back and say, look, after I spoke to you, CISO, I had engagements with 5 other clients, prospective clients, and they've come back saying, yes, they're interested in my product. Indeed, some of them have even issued contracts to my business. That's a business case that has now changed from the original one that was declined. So if you can then demonstrate that the issues that led to my decline have been fully addressed, then we can then reopen your application and consider it for funding. And then the other question that I also want to maybe speak to here is the issue of own contribution. I don't have own contribution. I don't have funds. Can the NEF still consider my application? So here is 2 things. We want you to make a contribution towards the business, and we want you to also put some commitment towards the investment that we will be making. And here we don't have a level of own contribution, say 10% or 30% or anything like that. We want to, the 2 things we consider is the level of commitment. So if you are personally worth 100 million rand and you only want to contribute 200,000 rands, it speaks to lack of commitment from the entrepreneur because they have the resources to contribute. The other aspect we consider here is financial viability, because this has impact on your cash flows. It has impact on your gearing and the level of indebtedness. A transaction with 50% own contribution, these are now unencumbered funds that need not be repaid, is different from an application that has own contribution of only 10%. So it can contribute to the application being declined, but is not looked at in isolation. So you're not declined on the basis that you don't have own funds or own contribution, but the lack of own contribution makes it makes significant financial risk in terms of that particular investment because of gearing. And then I also want to touch lastly in terms of what is then excluded, since there is a qualifying criteria, what is then excluded in terms of the application. 1, the manufacturing of arms or related products, so ammunition, related industries that we will not fund is excluded by policy. And then the other is sin industry, alcohol and tobacco. Here, I just want to speak a little bit to say, look, government applies taxes on these products strictly to discourage people from, from participating in alcohol and drink and smoking tobacco. So it will be did in contradictory for the same government funds to be used to promote the same industry. So that is excluded. What is also excluded is underground mining. So this is different from open cast mining. A quarry, for example, is open cast. Some mining of coal and diamond mining also is open cast. So underground mining specifically, we're looking at where there's shafts involved, where someone, you need to dig shafts, and is that kind of mining. It's underground, it's strictly done underground. We don't participate in that. And I want to also make a point here that if you're providing services to the mining industry, so you supply equipment, you provide cleaning to the mines, or you provide materials to the mines, that is different. Your revenue is not earned from the minerals dug underground, but from providing services to those mining houses. And lastly, what is excluded is on lending, meaning you borrow our funds for the purposes of borrowing to someone else, meaning perhaps you want to start a personal loan business, or you want to also possibly fund other SMEs. So that is excluded. We don't fund that. And speculative industries. So you want to trade Forex, one business I can think of that is speculative, or you want to trade shares, or you want to also trade perhaps cryptocurrencies or any other speculative kind of business where the outcome is unknown and is not dependent on the skills and abilities of the entrepreneurs. And then I just want to scroll through quickly the slides for just about 1 minute on the businesses we funded, because it also brings clarity on what we do. And in terms of medical devices, you'll see these applications range from a small amount, sometimes as small as 300,000 rands to as much as 50 million rands at times, or even 60 million rands. This one particularly 260 million rands. So that just shows you the range at which we fund as the NEF. Just want to scroll through some more. This is a bus, this is the hotel, it's a construction business, also Power FM, I think it's funded by the NEF. Okay, USAVE, this is a property development where someone develops the property to meet the standards of USAVE. And just many other businesses across all sectors. As I said, those are the exclusions that I just spoke of now. And everything in between, really, we consider it. And that's what the NEF does. We do a lot more. We've got partnerships with a lot of other organizations that are looking to fund their enterprise development. Sun City is the latest one. They're looking to partner with the NEF to provide funding for suppliers within their supply chain. So they've partnered with us because I'm not bragging when I say, but we do this and we do it well. And hence people, when they're looking to fund and they're looking for a partner who understands SMEs, who understand entrepreneurs, they will approach us as the NEF. And I want to stop here and thank the organizers of this event and for allowing us an opportunity to showcase the NEF. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Tludla. My apologies, everybody. I was technologically challenged for 1 second, but thank you so much for such a comprehensive a presentation. I'm just browsing through the chat box, and I was about to complain that nobody has sent you any question. I think you're opening with that video with the rendition of that song by Mama, I think it's Mama Miriam Mageba, hypnotized everybody. No one wants to ask you a question because it was a lovely local rendition of the song in the background. But you do have a question from Anonymous, who says, what happens if you are married with a white person in community of property, but you are only you're the only member in your business and the business is a CC?
Okay, so it's not an issue for us because remember, ownership, we look at the owner of the CC, even if you are married in community of property. So very simply, yes, that to us is 100% black-owned business. I must just state that in terms of marriage regimes, because sometimes people ask us, Why do you have to know my marital status, Caesar? Why do you ask that? Isn't it personal? I'm just applying for my business. What does my wife have to do with it? Maybe not separate from the question, but to answer it here, that this is what has stalled businesses, because we find people are married in community of property, the transaction is approved, but that deal is not dispersed until the partner has signed consent for the loan. And some entrepreneurs have found difficulty in securing that consent, and the deal completely falls apart without that consent. So I just want to mention that. But in this circumstance, the only thing that will be required will be consent to take up the loan from the partner, even if they are white.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. In the interest of time, we're not able to juggle, each and every comment that comes our way. But Mr. Dludla, we appreciate your time. We don't take it for granted. Thank you so much for your contribution to this critical discussion for our SMEs and entrepreneurs and businesses that are represented in this session. And last but not least, we are now going to hear from the Department of Small Business Development, DBSD, and it's a presentation by way of a video from Mr. Mzwanele Memani, who is a director in the department and takes care of various funding programs that they have in place to benefit you as a business. So may we have the Department of Small Business online, please. We have the video from Mr. Memani. That will be our last presentation, and we will do a Q&As and we'll close off the session. Thank you so much. Technical, are we good? There we go. Thank you.
Good afternoon and welcome back. We've had quite a day and quite some sessions, very informative, very insightful, and we're looking forward to the rest of the day. We do not have a video to play, but we have something special. Mzwanele will be doing the presentation live. So Mzwanele, thank you so much for joining us, and our delegates are ready to engage with you. So you have the floor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hel, for the warm welcome, and good afternoon to all the delegates and participants that are joining us this afternoon. So from the Department of Small Business Development, I think we are really proud to be partners with Proudly SA, because we do realize that in order for us to make a huge impact to the economy of this country, there is no way one department will do this or only by themselves. So it is really through fostering partnerships. So this is a great opportunity for us to just also highlight, some of the things we're doing. I'm going to talk briefly about the Department of Small Business Development. That our mandate, is very simple, is to support the development and growth of small businesses in the country. And as you know, it's never easy to start and run a business. People who talk of that whole ecosystem will actually tell you that you need a whole lot of things. You need capacity building, you need to be allocated a mentor, you need to have a business advisor, you need funding, you need to network with other SMMEs. And I think from our experience, some businesses even find it difficult, to network with other entrepreneurs for whatever reasons. But we do see businesses forming up associations and networks so that it's easier for businesses to get information, just for the free flow of information. And I'm hoping in South Africa, you know, we're going to escalate this thing of networking and collaborating, and then also learn, you know, from what other people are doing in South Africa. So we have two agencies, the Small Enterprise Development Agency, SEDA in short, and one of my colleagues will be speaking this afternoon at 2, mostly about what SEDA is doing. So please don't miss that session, because it's very key and critical just for all the enterprises we work with. We will really love to see them as clients of SEDA. And so SEDA will talk more about what they do. Yesterday, I believe one of our agencies also got featured, a Small Enterprise Finance Agency, CFA in short, and they are really responsible for funding. And I think this morning's session, there were a number of entities that spoke on funding, IDC, NEF, and yeah, so there's South Africa, at least to some extent, we do have TFIs that are there to support entrepreneurs. Again, it's not easy, as I saw a number of questions, people asking, you know, so accessing funding is never easy. Then in the department, one of the things we're really doing, which we want to master, is the issue of market access. So this topic is very important for us in the department, because I mean, you can be good in producing a product, you can be good in rendering a service, but if there is no one buying that service, honestly, it's a futile exercise. You can be given funding, you can be given machinery, equipment, people can buy you vehicles, you can be given infrastructure, but if you don't have people that are going to buy your product or service, that's just an investment that goes down the drain. So market access is very key. So I'm just going to highlight for just 5 minutes a policy that we drafted, we developed, and it got approved by Cabinet in 2020. This policy is called the SMME Focused Localization Policy Framework. And I'm just going to highlight, you know, why we developed this policy framework and what are its objectives. So there are just 7 aspects I'm going to touch on this localization policy framework, and then we'll open up a conversation for questions. The first objective of this framework is we want to build the manufacturing capacity and capability of SMMEs in the country. Why are we doing that? We're doing that precisely because there isn't a lot of small businesses involved in manufacturing. We are fortunate, at least, to have some of the businesses we work with. I think from our database overall, we possibly have about 400 SMMEs that are involved in manufacturing. But that 400 is really nothing when you look at the number of products that we import and the number of products that we buy from all the retail stores. So you can clearly see, I mean, from our research, there's actually more products we import than we export. But thanks to COVID, at least the current account in South Africa had a surplus, meaning we were now exporting more than we import. I'm hoping that's a trend we can even continue to do. In other words, we must export more to other countries. But again, I think you know that that's never easy because manufacturing is very expensive. Machinery, equipment, your infrastructure, the facility, all of those things must be accredited. So it comes very expensive. But nonetheless, I think we're making a determination to support SMME to go into venture into manufacturing as well as agro-processing. Because food, let's not forget, food is something we consume every day. And then the second objective, which is key for us, is to then do a coordinated import replacement plan. So the more we get small businesses in the manufacturing space, the more we can contribute in reducing imports. And I think for us, we are talking of a coordinated approach here. I know, when we talk import substitution and import replacement, people get mad at us thinking we are going to replace all imports. I mean, that's not our intention. There is no country, or maybe shall I say, there's very few countries in the world that will totally, not have imports coming in onto their shores. So we want to make a contribution there so that SMMEs can also contribute in reducing imports. And I think if you look at the 1,000 products that we compiled, we published it on our website, you will see, some of the products that we import, it's products that small businesses can produce even and opportunity. And then the third objective, which is very key, then talks to the issue of market, the route to market. And here, colleagues, there's two aspects. There is the private sector market, where as DBSD, we are working with the whole range of SMMEs and linking them to private sector value chains. And I think it's not an easy thing to do because the retailers already have established suppliers, but they've had these suppliers for the last 100 years. So to bring on new brands, it's never easy, but I think we have to do it. We have to lobby, we have to negotiate, we have to persuade them. Hopefully they will see the bigger picture. But if they do not transform their supplier databases, they are contributing to unemployment as well. And then the second aspect of market access is also through public procurement. Public procurement is still a bit of a tricky one. Those of you who listen to news are aware of what's happening in the public space. And we are hoping that the procurement regulation, is going to be transformed. And so we are lobbying as a department to get that Procurement Act overhauled so that, it can embrace all the citizens of this country. For now, we believe SMMEs are competing with large enterprises, and there's no way you will see some of the contracts awarded to small firms. But we'll continue to lobby with the support of all the players that we work with. And then the fourth area is also export penetration, because we do believe that SMMEs can play a key role in exporting their products. Firstly, start with SADC, with the neighboring countries. And I'm so excited to see some of the SMMEs we work with already exporting to Swaziland, to our neighboring countries. And I think we want to see more of that happening. And some SMMEs, you'll be surprised. They're exporting even without government support. And so they take those initiatives because they see opportunities. And I think we love those entrepreneurs, because for us, those are real entrepreneurs. Whether there's government support or no government support, they're going to wake up and run their businesses. And I think there's the African continental free trade area that we shouldn't forget. So we urge all entrepreneurs to really familiarize themselves with that framework so that they can also take advantage of opportunities just within the African continent. Forget about exporting to Europe, exporting to already, there's still a crisis in Ukraine and Russia, so you're not going to be easier for some of the SMEs to export to some of these countries. And then the fifth area is the area of skills development. Here, I'm not going to even spend time. Skills development is just very key. Where we work with universities, with colleges, we work with CETAs. CETA is there, in fact, to run this program of skills development, because we need SMMEs that are sharp, SMMEs that are smart. If you need to negotiate, and I see Dumelo this morning was talking about issues of registering your trade, your IP. So SMMEs mustn't lag behind in all of these things, so that people don't steal your technology, people don't steal your IP. Then the second last area is the area of innovation and digitalization. On Monday, people were saying that there's no fourth industrial revolution, whatever you want to call it, but we're doing things virtually, we're doing things online. Belinda was previously just presenting on RSA Made, where you can have your retail shop online. And I think that's what we want to promote. Remember, big companies have lots of resources. They can build malls, and unfortunately, small businesses can't afford those rentals. But at least you can afford to create your platform or even use RSA just for exposure, to get exposure, so that by the time we negotiate on your behalf, at least you have some footprint. And then the last area then is the area of funding. I'm hoping CFAC has touched on this area as well as other EFIs, but funding for us is very critical. So what we do when we onboard SMMEs that are ready for the retail market, we obviously, we know sometimes off-take agreements is difficult to get those, but at least we persuade the retailers to somehow make some confirmations so that the funding institution get comfort that this enterprise is going to be supplying this retailer. They might not necessarily have the volumes, they might not necessarily have all the specifics, but at least if they can just make that commitment for us, it gives us comfort. We can recommend you to CFA and say, CFA, can you kindly work with this enterprise? Because this enterprise is going to be listed by the retailer we are working. And yeah, so there is a manufacturing support scheme that we designed also in 2020, so that all the SMMEs that are in the space of manufacturing can receive support through the manufacturing support program. So, Chair, I think let me pause here and then we'll take questions. Thank you.
Ms. Wanele, thank you for that. It was so informative and was so interesting. Let me not take up the delegates' time. I'll go straight into questions from Mr. Sipho.
Fantastic. I'm hoping that you found that presentation from the Department of Small Business quite useful and informative, and you were able to get a lot from it. Should you have questions for the DTIC or not DTIC, I beg your pardon. Should you have questions for the Department of Small Business Development, given the presentation that they've just shared with you, you are very welcome to please email us, and we will make sure that they get that and they assist you accordingly. They are not online with us today, but we have access to them, and we'll ensure that your questions and comments get to them and they will respond to you via email. So I see there's a question from Kopano. I'll go through that just now, Kopano, but I think it's directed, it's quite a long message that you've sent. Generic. I see there's a lot of there's RSA Made, there's Proudly SA, and we'll take care of this and we'll respond to you accordingly. So in the interest of time, we are the time is 12:03, and we were scheduled to finish the session now at 12 o'clock. So I just want to also double check. So Kopano, Makino, we see your question and we will respond to you, in a separate platform. Thank you so much. And so let me just quickly see. There isn't anything else that I can spot. Even on Facebook, there isn't anything else that has come in. But my closing comments are this. Thank you so much, everybody, or those of you who have joined us on the Zoom platform, and those of you who are on Facebook. We thank you for your time. We don't take it for granted, but most importantly, we are hoping that everything that was said here today and that was shared with you, you could resonate with it somewhat, and you could relate to it, and you were able to pick quite a few things that you can apply in the day-to-day running of your business, or where you've now decided, okay, you need to engage the DTIC more, or you need to get a hold of the NEF or the IDC, or even the DSBD, to try and find a way to work with them going forward, even Proudly South African, for that matter, how you could possibly join us as a member. We are a member-based campaign. We do support a lot of companies that are affiliated with Proudly South African that are members. We are unable to work with the company or the product that is not affiliated with Proudly South African. For you to be a member, for those of you who may be on the platform who may not be a member of the campaign as yet, there's 4 criteria we look at before you are able to firstly enjoy all the access to market opportunities that we have in place for your specific sector, and also to apply our Proudly South African logo that you see on the screen now on your marketing collateral, on your product, and so on and so forth. 4 criteria. The first one is local content. So we're saying that 50% or more of the actual making of the product has to happen in South Africa. We understand that there are components or raw material that you may have to get from other countries to enable you to manufacture your product. Which is perfectly understandable, but the actual making of the product has to be made in South Africa. You have to demonstrate to us that in the course of manufacturing your product, you have created jobs locally. The second criteria is quality. It's one thing for us as Proudly South African to say, to tell South Africans, buy local, support local, and all of that. But we want to make sure that when they do that, that the product that they're buying is not Hong Kong, that it is a good quality product. So quality to us is one of the criteria, and which is very key. The third is labor laws. Do you, in the course of doing your business, do you conform to the labor laws of the country? Do you run your business according to what the law says that you must do? And fourth but not least is environmental standards. In the course of doing your work, creating or manufacturing your product, or even if it's a service, because we are a product and a service campaign. In the course of doing that, do you expose anybody to any sort of, danger, or, from in regards to the environment? Do you take care of the environment around you? So that's what we look at. And then if you tick all of those boxes, when we vet your product, you then, get membership from Proudly South African. And for SMMEs and small businesses, the fee that you would have to pay is 500 Rand per annum, 500 per annum. And for a period of 12 months, you will enjoy access to market opportunities. You will be invited to these kind of webinars. You'll be invited to the Summit and Expo at no cost to you. You'll be taken to trade shows. I mean, the list is endless. And for those companies that are diamond members, big companies such as multinationals, I'll give you an example, Kimberly-Clark, or even Nestle South Africa, or even Unilever, even Coca-Cola, Hollard, Sasol, they would then have to pay a fee of 100,000 Rand per annum. But for many of you who are on this platform, because this is specifically a business solutions webinar for SMMEs, you would then, pay as SMMEs and entrepreneurs, you would then pay a membership fee of 500 Rand. And what you do is that once you're a member, then marketing kicks in, where we host every quarter a meet and greet with our members where we take you through what your benefits are as a new member of the campaign, how you can apply your logo on all your marketing collateral, how you can truly maximize on and use your membership optimally for your benefit. I'm hoping that this gives you an idea of who we are and what we do as Proudly South African. Thank you so much, everybody. A big thank you to all our speakers. Thank you, Mr. Elias Rafapa and Mr. Vuyo Zita from the DTIC. Thank you to Mr. Mashwewu Matiela, who's Regional Manager, Limpopo, the IDC office. Thank you to Mr. Sizwe Dludla, who is Acting Investment Principal in Bewu Fund and NEF. And last but not least, the Department of Small Business Development, represented by Mr. Mzwanele Memani, who is Director at the department. Thank you so much to all of you for joining us. Thank you to the Proudly SA colleagues for putting this all together. Thank you so much and have a great day further. Thank you. Goodbye. Thanks.